It is a final from New Orleans. The Pelicans have swept the Portland Trailblazers 4-0 with a Game 4 win, 131 to 123, led by Anthony Davis, a possible MVP candidate, with 47 points, 11 rebounds, and Drew Holiday added 41 points, along with Rajon Rondo's 16 assists. Portland was led by CJ McCollum. Didn't think I'd be saying that after the first 3 games. He dropped 38 points tonight. Jack, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, unbelievable this series. Touch on what they've done for New Orleans to shock the world and sweep Portland 4-0.
I'll start with Anthony Davis. He might be the best player in basketball right now. Who thought we'd be saying that, or anyone would be saying that, let's say, like 3 months ago when Boogie went down? But this guy has been incredible. 28 points, 12 rebounds a game, 13 rebounds a game, mind you. Sorry about that. 2 steals in 3 blocks. He has dominated the series. Portland has not had an answer for him. And granted for him, and I'm not to take anything away from his performance because he's been fantastic, Portland does not have a matchup for him. Not that anyone in the league does, but Portland in particular has no one who can guard him. He took Yusuf Nurkic out of the series. Nurkic was a liability the entire time until maybe Game 4.
He played pretty well tonight. He played actually really, really well tonight, other than the fouling out. But I mean, he
was pretty good. Yes, you're right.
Tonight, he played really well tonight.
Yeah, but overall, especially defensively, I mean, when they put Davis at center and Nurkic has to guard someone, oh my God, like he couldn't do anything. Yeah. The Pelicans were just scoring all over the place. Al-Farouq Aminu, like I like him as a wing player, quality. He's improved a lot as a 3-point shooter. He can't guard Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, credit to him, in his first playoff series in a while, in like 3 years or so, since the Warriors swept him, he saw that Portland didn't have a matchup and said, you know what? I'm going to take this series over. And some guys don't have that mentality. Some guys have just come in and been completely overwhelmed by the pressure of the atmosphere, haven't really trusted their instincts and their abilities. This playoffs, Davis said, you know what? Time to watch out because let's just put it this way. Before the playoffs started and I was Golden State, I wasn't worrying about the Pelicans. Now I'm worried, and it's because of that guy. It's because of AD. I think he's been the best player in basketball for the past 3 months. And especially now, I'd be scared.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. I don't know if he's been the best player in basketball. I think James Harden is doing ridiculous things in Houston, but he's definitely in the conversation. And I also think he should be in the discussion for MVP. I like some people say it, but I mean, it's basically being talked at as a one-man race with James Harden. And then the next guy to talk about is LeBron James. Anthony Davis has been a bad man this entire year. And then come playoffs, when you really start evaluating guys based on playoff performance and finals performance. I mean, they're not going to get to the finals, but playoff performance especially. And he has delivered. They were a 6 seed playing a 3 seed, expected to lose. There was an article with the ESPN analysts. I don't remember how many there were, but they were upwards of 10. And every single one took Portland. Not one expert took New Orleans. So, I mean, that shows what experts know. But, I mean, they really turned it on Portland. Portland had no answer whatsoever the entire series. I thought after Game 1, when New Orleans beat Portland, I was shocked personally. But I was like, okay, maybe, Portland came out slow. Then Game 2 happened, and they played great again. And I was like, wow. But I still wasn't concerned because I still thought Portland was the better team. I underestimated this New Orleans team this whole time. New Orleans started to get a little bit of pressure on them from media, and they just kept delivering. And Portland just kind of couldn't find enough answers to get a game and get rolling in this series. All credit to New Orleans. And Anthony Davis is great, but Drew Holiday has been amazing this series as well.
I think the one difference between this series and some of the other series is that we've talked about Utah, OKC, what are the other ones? I mean, the Heat, Sixers. Portland's a very, very, very smart team. They knew what they had to do. They've outperformed expectations this year. And they made, in my opinion, in Game 4, some really nice adjustments. It just didn't matter because, and this is what makes New Orleans truly scary. Sometimes you can do all the right things, and they can still score at will. Also, I want to get into this with AD before we get into Holiday because I want to talk about him. But Anthony Davis's defense has gone from potentially best player in the world to first team all defense destroyer. He turned Damian Lillard.
Maybe first team All NBA too. He could be on all three.
That guy, all series long, it was like he was like the plague. If you saw him guarding you, you just had to give up the ball and just like let someone else do something. He was roaming the paint. He was blocking any drives that McCollum or Lillard were putting on the rim. They couldn't get anything going down lows purely because Davis was completely shutting that lane down. And also, when Davis got caught on switches with McCollum and Lillard, two incredibly talented ball handlers who make a living off of killing big men on switches, he was just not having it. He was locking up Damian Lillard 35 feet away from the basket, and he's 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
He's an alien. I don't understand. He completely took him out of the series, and that his impact on both ends was astounding. Every single play, it was like, where's Anthony Davis? Where is he? And I think Portland got in their heads. I think they got in their own heads a little bit, thinking, okay, we need to avoid Anthony Davis by doing this, this, and this. And Lillard started making a ton of mistakes just by fearing Anthony Davis's presence. That's how you know a defender's gone from good to great. When their presence alone starts affecting the game. That's where AD, I think, took a really big jump in the series.
Yeah, you made a good point with Portland. They're very well coached. Terry Stotts is a very well respected NBA coach. And just like you said, sometimes you do the best you can, but sometimes teams are just better on certain nights. And for 4 consecutive nights, New Orleans just brought the goods every single time. And honestly, if you're Portland, you look at your guard play as what let you down, which is shocking because that's what's gotten you to the 3 seed this entire time. Before we get to Portland, Jack, and talk about their disappointing postseason compared to their very impressive regular season, let's touch on Jrue Holiday real quick. Game 1, 21 points. Game 2, 33 points. Game 3, 16. And then tonight, he just caps off a sweep with 41 points, Jack. But it's not just offensively. I know you want to get to this. What about Jrue Holiday has been most impressive this postseason?
We all knew that Jrue Holiday was a solid player going into the series. We didn't know that he could consistently put up these performances. And I think matchup-wise, he was a very good foil to Lillard and McCollum. Because on offense, when Lillard and McCollum tried to match up with him, or any of the Portland guards for that matter, he was just shooting over the top of them. Jrue Holiday's a big point guard. I think he's got like a 6'10 wingspan or something like that. He's big, he's bulky, he can shoot over the top of people. He didn't care who was guarding him all series. He would just go around a pick and say, you know what? If there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock and I need to create a shot, I'm going to shoot over you. And he was sticking jumper after jumper and was opening up space for him all series long. And game 4 was epitomized that perfectly. He was, especially in the second half, just draining jumper after jumper. And that must be so demoralizing for Portland's guards who have struggled defensively for a while now in the league, I think 3 years or so. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I would be remiss in talking about Holiday if we didn't talk about his defense on Lillard, which was also game-changing. I mean, Davis, while he's by far their best player, Holiday's work on Lillard was absolutely... I knew Holiday was a good defender. I did not know he could do that to a guy who's legitimately in top 5 MVP discussions for the regular season. I'm going to get Lillard's stats this entire series. Looking them up right now. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 32% shooting.
That's insane. That's insane. That should not happen from your best player.
And from 3, both from the field and from 3, with 15 turnovers in the first 3 games. I'm not sure how many turnovers he had in this last game, but point being, Holiday turned him into a liability. To an MVP candidate, Lillard had taken a jump. He took the Portland.
No, I wouldn't say MVP candidate, but I mean, great
year. He was on the top 5 like MVP list. I don't think he was a serious contender, but
okay, well, yeah, Depends on how far down you call a candidate, I guess. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
You're right.
I understand what you're saying, though.
But Lillard, point being, Lillard had taken a jump, and he was becoming like a great player, and Holiday just locked him down. He was fighting over screens. He did a fantastic job of bodying up on Lillard and forcing him towards Davis, which I'm sure made Holiday's life a lot easier. Imagine being a point guard defender knowing that you have one of the best shot blockers in the world behind you. Like, okay, go ahead. Get your shot eaten alive. But Holiday, fantastic all series. And what impressed me the most, his consistency. It wasn't a one-off. It wasn't like one game where he went crazy. He just played like an all-star. A fantastic performance from him.
Another guy that's kind of been playing like an all-star this series, Jack, his counterpart in the backcourt, Rajon Rondo. He has been incredible this entire series. Over the series, he averaged 35.5 minutes per game. Listen to these stats that he's averaged in the 4-game series against Portland, who's known for like probably a top 3 guards in the league with Lillard and McCollum starting backcourt. They're definitely top 5.
Yeah,
I've never really analyzed top 3, but they're definitely top 5. And Rondo averaged 11.25 points per game, 13.3 assists per game, and 7.5 rebounds per game. That's insane, given that Rondo has had his struggles the last couple of years, finding his place on a roster even, and now he is playing amazing playoff minutes for this New Orleans team. And when they run Drew Holiday, Rajon Rondo, and Anthony Davis together, which they're doing, it's tough to guard. Jack, why is that so tough to guard for teams? Especially Portland.
I think, the first thing is Rondo could have been on any team in August. Anyone could have had him.
That's insane.
What a find. I mean, I've had my problems with Rondo in the past few years. I think he can, especially in the wrong situation, become kind of a selfish assist hoarder kind of player. You know what I mean? He's not the most amenable personality in a locker room, but that dude is smart. That dude is smart as hell. And he clearly, you can see it in his assist numbers and his passing. He and Anthony Davis have like a mind meld. It's like whenever Anthony Davis gets a little bit open, Rondo's like, okay, I'm going to throw the ball about 15 feet in the air and you're going to go catch it and then just throw it in the hoop. Like, how do you guard that in the pick and roll when it's on like that and you don't have the individual defenders to make that an issue? And another little thing that I think really helped the Pelicans this year, especially in the playoffs, Drew Holiday is now their off guard. Last year, he was their point guard. And a few times in this series, Drew Holiday at the end of games made a bunch of very poor decisions. He has weird moments where he just makes, like he threw the ball out of bounds, I think, in game 1 to give Portland a chance to come back into it. He made a few really bad turnovers at the start of the fourth quarter today. When he's playing the primary facilitator, I think that he becomes less of an asset because he's not the best decision maker. Rondo allows Holiday to move into more of a secondary playmaker role or off-guard shooter role. And Rondo takes up some of that facilitating burden, and their play together has really surprised me, particularly in how well they play off of each other. And Rondo, to his credit, guy we used to think of as someone who couldn't shoot, has improved his three-point shot a lot. I think was at 35% in the regular season. Let me look up what he was at during the playoffs here. 50%. And now
how many did he take? 8?
He took 6, which obviously is not a lot over a series period, but it's like still, if you're making enough of them, the only reason 3-point shooters are as valuable as they are is not just because they make threes. It's because they open up space for other people when you have to account for them. And Rondo has at least made people realize, okay, this guy can shoot if you leave him wide open. We have to step closer to him, which opens up more space for Holiday, for Davis, for Mirotic. It's all beautifully coalesced into this dynamic offense that today just ruined Portland. I mean, Portland couldn't do anything to stop them at all.
Yeah. When you have a dominant big man, whether it be a power forward, center, whatever they want to list them today, it's positionless anyways, but Anthony Davis. When you have any team, power, just a great center, it's so underrated that you need a point guard that is not a scoring point guard, but rather a pass-first point guard. And Rondo has filled that role for Anthony Davis, and it's helped him this season, I think. you see that in Philadelphia with Ben Simmons. He's not really, if you watch his game, he's not a scoring first point guard. He's more of a pass first point guard. And I mean, he gets his buckets, don't get me wrong, but he's also getting what do you average assist wise? At least 12, 13 this year. So I mean, it's very. I think if you have a big man, it's so important. Like a good big man is what I'm trying to say. It's so important to have a pass first point guard that can dish him the ball down low correctly, to be successful. I think with Whiteside, that's kind of the problem we're seeing with Whiteside. He doesn't have a point guard that can utilize him the way he needs to be. So I mean, I think this is something that teams need to kind of look into. If you have a dominant big man that you need to surround, you need a pass first point guard. And I think Rondo found the right fit in New Orleans. He was bouncing around for a couple seasons, but I think he's finally found the right fit, and it's good to see. It really is. All right, Jack. Portland, great regular season, really impressive what they did. 3 seed. They were one of the most overachieving teams this year in the league, probably, other than Philadelphia, obviously. But come playoff time, once again, not much production. What happened? What do you think happened? Do you think the pressure got to them, or just New Orleans was too good? What do you think it was that got Portland on the earliest bounce out of any playoff team?
Well, this team, when you actually look at it very closely, I think they were a lot more vulnerable than even us gave them credit for. I mean, I had Portland in 7. I didn't think they'd ever get swept in a million years, but they remind me a lot of like the Raptors from last year and 2 years ago, a team that relies so much on their 2 guards to create something that once they come up against talents that are just good enough to block off that first option, they don't have a plan B. Portland, I think they're one of the teams that runs the most pick and rolls in the NBA. They don't pass the ball around a lot to their secondary guys, and they rely all regular season. They rely all the time on McCollum and Lillard to create shots. I think they were in the bottom 5 in points scored off of assists in the league, which can work if you have physically dominant players like a LeBron who can get a shot whenever he wants, or even like a Durant. But
I mean, that's how OKC's gotten by.
Yeah, exactly.
Just guys that can just hit jumpers and ISO ball. I think that's a good similar.
Yeah, no, you're right. But Lillard and McCollum, it doesn't work in the playoffs, because once you get further along, and sometimes in the first round, you come up against talents that are too physically imposing to make that strategy viable. And in this series, it was Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis. And Lillard could not find any space to work. He was off his rhythm all series long. McCollum was a little bit better. He got better as the series went along, but he was still not good enough on the defensive end of the floor. And their offense they didn't have many other options. If you think about it, after those 2 guys, Nurkic is their next best option. And he's been good this year, and he was good in game 4, but he was kind of questionable throughout the series. Outside of that, Evan Turner, he needs the ball in his hands, which takes the ball out of Lillard's and McCollum's hands, which isn't ideal. After that, Al-Farouq Aminu, who, by the way, had a great game 4. But this is the thing. They don't have many options outside of that plan A, and this is why I think Terry Stotts is going to come up on there's going to be a lot of heat thrown his way. Yeah. You need to have a plan B when it comes to the playoffs. When Embiid is out for Philly, Ben Simmons can run the show, okay? When the Rockets have James Harden now, Chris Paul can run their offense. Most great teams have plan Bs. When Curry's out for the Warriors, they turn into a defense-first Durant carrious type of team. They have a plan B. Portland didn't have that, and they didn't have anyone off the bench to change that, and they made a bunch of small adjustments that we can't get into in game 4, but really, when we're going to look back at this series, it's going to be about how Lillard and McCollum couldn't do what they usually get to do, and they couldn't adjust because they never learned how to adjust into a different game plan. And Portland's going to have to ask a lot of questions this summer about how to build their team, build their offense, like Toronto this last summer, and see where they can go. And as Toronto has shown, you can do it, but it's going to be hard.
Yep. Last thing, Jack, I want to look into the Portland's offseason real quick. The biggest thing for me that they need to focus on next year is how they play on the road. this is a team that was 500 on the road. They were 21-20 on the road this year. And I know this is a 3 seed that was also a game out of being like, I think the 7, maybe even 8 seed. I don't know how tiebreakers would have fell, but I mean,
that whole morass of teams from 3 through 8 was just, they were all the same.
But nevertheless, they were the 3 seed, and they're 21-20 on the road, which is just, it's not going to cut it when it comes playoff time, because it's not like you get that many games at home. And if you lose one at home, all of a sudden home court's flipped. And that's problematic if you can't get the job done on the road. So if you lose one at home, you're going to have to do what you haven't done all year, which is win on the road. And it showed this series that they can't do it.
Portland this summer, one of the biggest, they're going to have a lot of problems in changing this, in my opinion, because they're capped out. They can't make many big changes. In my opinion, ideally, they could get a player on the wing, a physically imposing, like a guy who can create his own shot and has multiple different skill sets, kind of, because right now they have a bunch of one-dimensional players. Aminu and Harkless are like these 3-and-D guys theoretically that can do a little bit, but they're not good enough to, they're not involved enough in the offense for it to be like, the word is unpredictable. That's what I'm looking for from Portland. Be more unpredictable. Find ways to play your game when things aren't going well. What do you do when the chips are down and the other team is giving you a haymaker? Like, what do you do? And they do not have that plan B. They're going to have to change their entire offense this offseason. I think that they can build a really interesting offense around Damian Lillard and McCollum flying off screens like Golden State does, because Lillard is a fantastic three-point shooter when he's on his game, and they have a little bit of that in their offense, but not a lot. But other than that, it's bleak. I don't know what they can do other than to develop their young guys and get a good draft pick. They their decision to draft Zach Collins at number 10, right? They had 15 and 20 traded for number 10 in this last year's draft.
Yeah.
And we could say this about a lot of teams, but they missed out on Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. How many teams could have used Donovan Mitchell? Like, these little things have ripple effects that we will never know where they would have gone to, but
that's also hindsight, though, because maybe Donovan Mitchell doesn't develop in an atmosphere like Portland with superstars there. I mean, Donovan Mitchell literally fell into a perfect scenario with Gordon Hayward leaving, and they literally didn't have a score when Gobert was out. And so, I mean, things still had to go right if Donovan Mitchell went to Portland. But no, yeah, you're totally right with them. Even with that one pick, they had 2 picks. I mean, they could have gotten 2 solid guys, and instead, they drafted up for a guy that really wasn't ever going to be their number 1 center. I mean, Nurkic is that's their guy. So, I mean, I didn't really understand that, and we'll see. But now they've got to worry about if Damian Lillard or McCollum are going to want to stay. I mean, they're getting to that point where it's been so long where they have not done anything in the postseason, where Damian Lillard might be, hey, I need to get a championship. Or McCollum saying, hey, I want to be the number 1 guy somewhere. Or, you know, there's so many different scenarios. I don't think they should leave, but I don't make the decisions for them. So they might want to trade. We'll have to see. But congrats to the New Orleans Pelicans. Massive, massive, massive win for them. Very incredible what they've done these 4 games. They're moving on, and they will get the Golden State Warriors once they finish up with the San Antonio Spurs, probably tomorrow. We'll get into that series more next week because they're both going to have some time off. I don't know how the NBA scheduling works because it's usually rare that the 2 teams that are going to play each other both sweep and are the first 2 guys done. They might start them early, but we'll see. Both teams will probably have a lot of rest, so we'll get into that. And Portland, disappointing postseason, but congrats to the New Orleans Pelicans. Anthony Davis with 47 and 11 tonight. Holiday with 41. Rondo 16 assists. The Pelicans get it done tonight. They sweep the Portland Trailblazers 131-123. Please like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Beyond Debatable. We will be tweeting during the playoffs. Didn't get to as much today, but yesterday we did, and we will tomorrow for the great slate of games we've got. Please go watch our other post games from today, the Philadelphia-Miami Game 4. And then we just finished up OKC, Utah taking that and taking a 2-1 lead series. 2-1 lead games in that series. And then we're about to do the Houston and Minnesota one. He, on the other side of the camera, is Jack the Statman Cudahy. I am Michael Rachel, and you've been watching Beyond Debatable.